Okay, we're live. So, welcome everyone to the next live that my beautiful partner Shiva Rajaya is joining us for. Thanks for being here, babe.
It's a pleasure. Super excited, babe.
And we're talking about a topic on foreplay and all things around the foreplay zone. And it occurred to me when working with a lot of couples in my client sessions that people really don't know what to do in the foreplay zone. It's like, well, I know that I touch here and rub that, and it's so far beyond that when you bring it into the context of Tantra. And my prayer is that anyone listening to this or the replay is that they get an insight into what's possible in foreplay and why it's so important to connection and intimacy, and of course impacts lovemaking in a huge way. So where do we want to begin?
Where do we want to begin?
Where do we want to begin? That is always the question.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, what's the deep intention behind that? Why are we talking about this, and why is it important in the field of intimacy, tantric sex, but intimacy in general, right? Why is it something that it's a good topic to cover?
Mm. Yeah,
Right?
well, I think for me, the intention is to really give people an education of what foreplay is in the broader context of lovemaking, with or without penetration, because it's an education that none of us have had, and we don't really have a lot of healthy role models because sex and foreplay is kept behind closed doors. And what really expanded my experience of lovemaking, and for me the foreplay zone is part of lovemaking, was our connection. And actually being with a man who placed as much value on foreplay, if not more, as he did on penetrative lovemaking. And it just blew my mind and opened my body up to more pleasure at an emotional level, as well as a physical level, as well as an energetic level, and as well as a spiritual level, that I was like, oh my God. So yeah, my intention is to really for people to really receive the reality of what foreplay can be in their life, to create deeper intimacy and connection and pleasure.
Yeah, brilliant, beautiful. Yeah, for me, it's tuning to the frequency of foreplay and sex and intimacy in general. But what is the guiding force? What is the frequency, or what is the wave that we can catch in terms of bringing passion and bringing pleasure, and how to activate all that? And again, if you're watching all of that, my desire is that by the end of this live, you will have really an understanding about and a capacity to enter into that foreplay zone and intimacy zone with your partner or with a potential lover. If you're on a date with somebody, it's like, what do you do? How do you activate all that, right? So yeah, that's the intention. What is a simple way to tune into that frequency so that it becomes really part of your life and part of your being?
Absolutely. And I'd like to start with kind of where our education has been with sensuality and sexuality. And it has very much been the animal primal body, right? A lot of flesh, a lot of friction, and a lot of programming and conditioning from pornography, because it is the most widespread form of exposure to sexuality that we have on our planet. So you can see what we're up against here, and why our programming is to go into the primal and to go in fast, and to be very physically based.
Mm-hmm.
So what foreplay allows two people to do is to connect beyond just the physical, and to connect in all these other realms that make up the wholeness of our being. And that
Mm-hmm.
is our emotional body, and that
Mm-hmm.
is our energetic body, and that is our connection to spirit. And so when we have the animal active and connected with our partner, as well as the emotional body connected, as well as our energetic beings, and then as well as that connection to mystical realms, that's when lovemaking becomes a healing modality. That's when lovemaking becomes two souls physically, emotionally, spiritually bonding and merging together. And that's when lovemaking is a pathway to liberation, to spirit, to remembering who we are. So it's in a way retraining of what sensuality and sexuality is when we take penetration off the agenda, when we take ejaculation and peak orgasm off the table, and we go, what does it look like when two people are coming together and they're starting to get erotic with each other?
Mm-hmm.
And what always came to mind when we first started connecting years ago is, it's kind, for me, it's like the innocence of two, teenagers who are exploring each other's bodies and smelling and, wow, feeling these shapes and curves, and oh, that feels good. So you might play there longer and then maybe get a bit shy. And there's this curiosity. And
Yeah.
for me, it's the perpetual state of curiosity of how my body wants to move, of how I want to connect with your body, and of what I'm receiving, that is where that portal to amazing foreplay happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. I love that. The curiosity part is a huge one, right? It's like
Mm.
activating precisely this moment where I look into this woman and I go like, who is this being? You know, so there is an attunement, right? There is a moment where I'm calibrating my energy and I'm being super present. So this is not going to work if I'm very distracted and I'm all over the place and I'm like, oh, I just want to penetrate you and have sex with you and I feel really turned on and I have absolutely no idea where Tara is at. So that's the first step. It's like a step of curiosity, of being like really present with what's alive. And sometimes what is going to be alive in this woman is tears. Sometimes it's joy. Sometimes she's very excited, but sometimes she's going through a tough journey. So the first step is really this attunement and the way we tune in, right? We're in front of each other, and first we allow all the emotions or anything that is present to be expressed and voiced or come to the surface. And sometimes it is verbal, but sometimes it is just by standing in front of each other and breathing and shaking, right? We're going to do some energetic connection. And so this, we move into the energetic embodiment. This is not a physical sex, but it's energy sex. It's already connecting on an energetic level. And so if I want to connect with this woman on a deep, profound level, I need to feel her. I need to be present with her. I need to know if touch is appropriate or not, if kissing is appropriate or not. What is the first step that we can take? And the first step, most of the times, is just being present with somebody else's emotions. Oh, what I notice about you, without even voicing it or verbalizing it, is like, what I notice about you right now is that, oh, there is a sense of playfulness and joy, and you look really happy, or there is vulnerability, or there is something that is a bit shut down or contracted. So this is the place where we want to start. It's not about me coming and being like, okay, I've got an agenda. I'm going to give you an orgasm. Where is your clitoris? Where is your vagina? Run into that and then be like really proud of myself because no,
Uh,
it's like, that's not going to work because there is no attunement. So if I force an agenda, if I come with that agenda, it's not going to work. So the first thing that I need to do as a man, and for a woman is the same, right? If, before you touch a man, is like just tune into where that person is at. And this sense of attunement is really, really important because otherwise we're going to miss each other. If Tara is over here and I'm over here, we have to find a way of synchronizing. And this is entering into energetic resonance, limbic resonance. And the best way to do that, just to be in front of each other and start synchronizing the breathing without any form of touch. That's the absolute first step. And be curious about the other person. Like, what's alive in you? Oh, you're sad. No, I don't want to feel that. I want to feel the joy. I want to feel it. You're not turned on. You're not erotic. What? I don't know how to deal with that. No. So the first step is really to receive the full dimension, be really open and be curious, and allow the space for everything to be present right there. I don't
Mm.
want to make love with that person or engage into foreplay, which is a fraction of Tara. Just be like, I take that part, but not that part. It has to be the full embrace of everything that she is. So this is the first step. This is where we start, is the attunement and the calibration before there is even touch, before there is sometimes even conversation. But it's just like being there present with whatever is alive, right?
Absolutely. And that presence is so important for amazing foreplay, because we have our mind that's just spiraling what the day's been so far, what the future's going to be. And so when we hold presence and we come into this like connective foreplay zone, then our attention is fully engaged with the other person and with ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
within our bodies. So it's like if you were going on a date, and you're having dinner with your partner, you're going to be a bit upset if they're on their phone or they're daydreaming, or they're in their head about stuff. Presence is sexy. Presence is
Mm-hmm.
so sexy. And when you can meet each other, when you're entering that foreplay zone with presence in your own being to really show up with your partner, and then presence with the other person and really holding space for yourself and them, then so much can open in the foreplay zone. And
Mm-hmm.
it's there that actually we can then attune to our partner. How are they responding to my touch? How am I responding to their touch? And that's where
Mm-hmm.
this curiosity comes in, is when we're staying attuned to ourselves of what we're a yes to or what maybe feels uncomfortable, and being honest with that, being present with that, seeing what that needs.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it just needs to let out some energy. Maybe there's some stress and tension in the body from the day. So maybe I'm just going to shake a little. Maybe I'm needing things to slow down a little. And then I might voice that, or I might start to move my body more slowly. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
when I'm tuning into my partner with you, it's like I see what really your body is opening to in regards to touch. And so I'll do more of that. Or I'll ask, does this feel good right now?
Exactly.
And that really leads us on to also is active receiving. So we've got our presence. So we're showing up for ourselves, we're showing up for our beloved. And then we've got our attunement. So we're curious and attuned to how our bodies are responding and our beloveds are responding.
Mm-hmm.
But help each other out a little.
Yes.
And sound is always the most constricted part of coupling that I see, is actually expression, both
Mm-hmm.
when feeling pain and when feeling pleasure. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I love about you is that when I do something that feels good, you really let me know, and vice versa. And it can be as simple as like, oh, I love when you stroke the back of my neck. And that's pretty much saying to the person, do more of that, please. That's working for me.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to be reciprocal, and we also get to activate and elevate our pleasure bodies by making sound, because
Yes.
sound keeps opening. So the more sound that I'm making, the more open and aroused that I'm becoming. And
Yeah.
so it works two ways.
Beautiful. Yeah, the,
Mm,
the, the sounds that you make are a profound indication. Tell me if I'm on the right path or not, right? And it's the moaning and the yes, the way you breathe is going to tell me if I'm tuning into the good and right frequency at that moment. So this feedback that we are getting first by listening to what is happening, but also sometimes it can be actively asking, something that I do with Tara as well. I just go like, yes, yes, or no.
yeah.
When I try something and I'm not 100% sure, of course, it's not a constant thing. It's not like needing reassurance for every step, but sometimes I'm like, does that feel good? For instance, if we start moving towards something that becomes more sexual and more erotic, right, instead of just purely sensual, and I go like, how does it feel in your breast? And then, she will be like, oh yes, that feels really good. Or I can see that there is potentially some discomfort or something. So the feedback, the active feedback is really important. And something that works really well if you want to practice that with your partner, just practice a certain form of touch. For instance, you can touch behind the neck or on the shoulder, and then you ask, you say yes or no, right? To play this game, yes or no. And important to be really honest with each other. And if it's yes or no, so it's like attuning with that, and it's very radical in experiencing that. When I coach couples on that, it's a practice that I bring as well, simply to guide the partner that might not be able to fully tune in into what the other person is feeling. So make sounds, yeah, make it really, really juicy and fun and sexy, because the indication of the sounds, and together with the morning, I mean, it's something that builds up the energy and builds up the erotic and the pleasure potential of your connection, right? It expands.
Mm,
Oh my God.
absolutely. And, so many couples don't share and communicate what they like, or what they're wanting more of. So it's in this foreplay zone that you really get to understand yourself, and you really get to understand each other more. It's such an important part of sensual and sexual connection, because you're getting to harmonize your bodies. And that's what just blows me away the most about foreplay, is
Hmm.
how deeply transformative it is and how deeply connective it is.
Hmm.
So communicating in the foreplay zone, keep it sexy by actively receiving, say what you do like. And yeah, you really get to understand more about your own body and more about your partner's body.
Hmm.
And also this differentiation between when we're more in sensual energy and then when it becomes more sexual energy. And in the foreplay zone, you and I are connecting sensually for at least half an hour. And what that does when the genitals are not prioritized, they're not focused on, but full body touch, caressing, whispering words of love and adoration, seeing what the other one likes, then it opens the emotional body, and it
Hmm.
connects hearts together in this beautiful, safe, central zone. And we all know that when a woman feels safe and when a man feels safe in sensual connection, then the sexual energy, the erotic body, then really can activate to its full potential. So the invitation is to stay in the central zone. Don't rush anything. There's no place to get to. And it's
Hmm.
actually the central zone that the safety is created. It's in the central zone that the emotional body gets activated. It's in the central body that the chakras, the nadis, the energetic frequencies in our bodies start to really crank and connect with ourselves and with our partner.
Hmm.
That then when your whole body is online, then when you go to touch the yoni, the lingam, the nipples, it's like the whole body is alive and open and feels safe, and it's like, woohoo, let's do this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it takes a different amount of time depending on where each person is at. And that can absolutely change from day to day. So what worked between us yesterday might look completely different the next day, depending on where we're at. And so that's when we go back to presence. That's when we go
Hmm.
back to attunement. That's when we go back to curiosity. And this is why tantric foreplay and tantric lovemaking is incredible, because it looks different every single time. There's
Hmm.
never a time that we've connected and made love that I've been bored. Why? Because
Yeah,
we stay
exactly.
present. We stay present to the moment. We stay present to ourselves and each other. We stay attuned. We stay curious. we're sharing what we love, we're sharing what we want more of. And so that leads the direction of what to do next. And so many people go, but I don't know what to do next. I give them some homework. I'm like, okay, practice this. And they're like, but I didn't know what to do next. So come back to presence. Be
Yes.
curious. Ask, is there anything that you desire right now? What would feel good right now? And experiment. This is the laboratory of sensual, erotic delights. So explore.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. I love, this whole topic. One of the things that, the reason why we call it tantric, right? When we say tantric lovemaking or tantric dating or tantric coupling or tantric foreplay, why is it tantric? And one of the things that we want to bring in there, we talked already about the energetic, but it's about the mystical dimension of what's happening. When I look at this woman, I don't just see a physical body. I see a spirit. I see the embodiment of a goddess energy. And so when we engage, some of you might be practicing yoga, for instance, and your way of connecting with spirit is through asanas, or you might be meditating, or you might be doing breath work, and all of that, or our activations, prayers, and meditations, right? And so when we are partner, when we are coupled, and we start sensualizing, it's not just the physical gratification. It's not just let's build up some oxytocin, right? Let's build up some connection. It's not just about that. It's really about engaging into a meditative practice. It's a prayer. And within that prayer, it means that we engage forces that are much greater than ourselves. It's like we activate consciously a space of secretness, a space of dedication. And with Tara, we do that with mantras, of course. This is what I do a lot over here. If you arrive at my temple, there is mantras everywhere. There is symbols, sacred geometry, there is gods and goddesses, statues. And so the place is very much vibrating on this dedication. And if you want to engage into sensuality, conscious sensuality, or conscious foreplay, without that, that's fun as well. But the moment it becomes tantric, it's because there is really the spirit of tantra is engaged. It means that there is a force that is engaged, which is not just Tara and myself. It's like there is a spirit or a force which is greater or more powerful or something. Imagine that we have an angelic being supervising our connection. So what we do in the foreplay zone is precisely singing mantras, is activating this vibration so that we know that we're engaging into a space which is tantric. It's not just anything. It's like it's a set of rituals, practices, and all that is part of establishing the energetic or the mystical connection. And I've been noticing that multiple times in the interaction that we have been having. It's like sometimes we connect and we start connecting, and it's a little bit like, trying to find the resonance. And then we take a break or we shift, and then we start singing some mantras, and then we come back, and within 5 minutes of being in the mantra zone, then suddenly the fire starts waking up with really intense power. And so that's something that is very important to put into the picture. If you want to make it tantric, you've got to bring in tantric practices in there, and that's the topic for something else. But I want you to know that this is an essential aspect of the foreplay that we have, between Tara and myself. It is the energetic dimension. It is the emotional release. It's everything that is somatic, of course. It's everything that is, sensual and erotic. But then there is like this dimension, which is the intentional invocation of the tantric forces and tantric powers. And our relationship and our connection would not be what it is if it wasn't being actively sponsored by those energies, because we are using the sensual space, the erotic space, as a place for meditation and prayer. It means that when I touch this woman, when she puts her hand on me, there is this like profound respect, profound honoring of each other that has this dimension of mysticism. I look at Tara, she's called Tara. That's the name of a goddess, right? It's like, why is it? It's not a coincidence. I'm Shiva, So it's like Tara meeting Shiva is like two gods and goddesses energies meeting. You don't need to have a spiritual name for this to work, right? It can work even if you don't have a spiritual name. But sing the mantras, go to my website, check what we are doing there, because there is lots of magic behind that. And that's an essential aspect of entering into another dimension. the four dimensions of time and space are great. The energetic dimension, this is fifth dimension. When we enter into mysticism, it's sixth dimension. It means that it's literally like as if we have been living in a sheet of paper, and then suddenly there is another dimension. Suddenly we see things from, wow, from a whole new perspective. This is what awakening means. So we are agents of awakening for each other. And so the foreplay, we talk about techniques and how should I touch and all that, but this is almost like the details of something that is much, much vaster in the picture. The foreplay is not the play before something else. We just use that term because this is a term that is common, but it's a full, powerful, incredible awakening experience by itself. We could be exploring each other's body just with touch, with absolutely no sexual intention, and be like completely blown away and expanded into that space. Have you ever received a massage from somebody, even if it's not from a lover, but just a regular massage, and feeling like, oh, your whole body is feeling expanded in the process, right? It's because the energetic and emotional release just creates this openness, this release of the tensions in the body that suddenly allows us to connect with the spirit, on a mystical dimension, right? And the good news is that we didn't have to, Tara has been initiated in her own way, so I've been initiated in my own way. So when we come together, we come with two bodies of energies that are already trained into the arts of mysticism. And that's that's really powerful. I always brag about you, and I say, "Oh my God, it's so incredibly nice to make love with an awakened woman." you know?
Right back at you. I say the same thing. And babe, I think what you're speaking to here is, for me, it's the word devotion. We're both devoted to the tantric path, and the tantric path is the devotion to expanding oneself beyond our conditioning, and to showing up in service for others and connecting to the truth of our reality of existence, which is that we are divine beings. If every one of us are god and goddesses that have incarnated into this human form, then
Yes.
coming into duality, and we're just like trying to work it all out and what to do with it. So when we talk a lot about inner union between our masculine and feminine, in Hinduism they call it Shiva and Shakti. And so when you get to sit before your beloved in this foreplay zone, for me, that mystical element is that deep devotion and reverence to your partner before you. And if you don't have that in your partnership, you probably shouldn't be making love to them. So where really it all starts is looking into each other's eyes, and coming into stillness and silence, and connecting at the hearts before anything, and really dropping into that meditative presence where it's like, wow, I love you. And I want to worship and adore your body, your heart, your whole being, to feel good. I love this man, and that's my mission, for him to feel good. And I feel, and I receive that from you as well. And one part of that, setting up that sacred devotional space, is to set up your physical space. So there's not a time where we make love, rarely, that we don't have beautiful music on in the background, candles lit, and nice lighting.
Exactly, beautiful.
And it's just, you're about to go on this beautiful connection with each other. Why would you not set up a beautiful space for that? So when you do that, when you light candles, you might light incense, you put on music, then you're creating a devotional space.
Exactly.
And come together in that space, it adds an extra quality and it adds an extra intention, rather than, oh yeah, let's do that thing that feels good. Actually,
Exactly.
let's go on a journey together, because I don't just want to have sex with you. I don't just want to fuck you, and definitely I love doing both. But I want to go on a journey with you, and I want to merge with you.
Exactly. Exactly.
And from
This
that
mystical
space.
dimension, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
the mystical
And
dimension.
so this means creating the temple space intentionally. And if you don't have any idea where to start by yourself. Imagine that you're in a space and you're by yourself. What would you put into the space? It's an altar. It's like different things. You remove technology. If you want to know what we're talking about over here and what it feels like, I'm just going to turn off the light here for a second. But those are the kind of representations that I have over here in my temple, and they represent precisely the union of the divine, of two divine energies. And having some form of representation, some form of visual, allows us to really tune into all that. And Tara has her whole set of pictures, right? But basically, this gives you some visual representations of what we're talking about. And so when we start moving into that space, there is, those visual representations, they are archetypes, right? Archetypes is like the divine course or the divine um, plans for the ideal connection between a man and a woman. So that's beautiful. Something I want to bring in as well that you mentioned earlier is precisely the fact that we are flowing with curiosity and moving with it. Sometimes when we talk about sex, and even right now, we are conceptualizing that a lot, a little bit for you, so that we feed also our brains and our mental understanding. But realize that sensuality, foreplay, everything that has to do with sex is an art form. And with any form of art, we're going to learn some keys, right? We learn some basic keys. We learn some basic moves. For instance, if we want to learn how to dance the salsa, we are going to go to some classes and we are going to learn some steps. But eventually, after maybe 3 months of practice, then eventually we start going to free flowing. And free flowing means that we start improvising. It's no longer about following a certain structure, but much more about being present in the moment and being able to improvise and create mystery and create adventure. And so with foreplay, with tantric sex as well, it's very good to learn a few core moves. For instance, basic massage touch or kissing techniques, or when you're penetrating, also moving beyond the foreplay. Also, what are some of the things that you can do. Learn about some basic mantras. So learn some very specific techniques, and then once this is established in the field, once you have been practicing that either by yourself or with your partner, then you can start moving into something that becomes much more free flow. It's like, for instance, with Tara, maybe at some point we did some sequences, right, which were, precise sequences. But now, most of the times, we are in free flow. It means that we start from a place where just looking to each other, starting to touch, and then the whole thing takes over, and then it's full on like surfing a wave. So remember this, because this really helps. Get out of your head. You can be like really present and all that, but as soon as you can, get out of your head and go into presence and go into flow. You want to enter into a flow state. But the flow of sensuality and pleasure and passion and sex and all that is a flow of passion, a flow of fire. We are not trapped into our heads, but we are really like, moving the energy with that. And if you want to keep one core idea into your mind, and this is something that I use a lot, it's where is the pleasure, right? If pleasure is your guiding force, you go like, where is the pleasure? I look at Tara and I go like, how can I expand this woman's pleasure capacity? And this is a good guiding force, right? A good guiding mindset. It's not about, oh, I'm going to touch her on the shoulder here, press here, mentalize. It's not about the technique. It's about the intention behind. The core intention over here, for me, when I'm engaging with Tara, when I want to enter into the foreplay zone with her, is like, how can I activate her pleasure capacity? How can I expand her erotic and sensual pleasure channels? That's my intention. So it's going to be, let's have some fruits, let's have some chocolate, let's have some sensuality, let's have beautiful scents in the house. Let's take a cold shower or take a bath or go to the spa together, receive a massage or give a massage, use some oils. Everything is about creating precisely this sense of safety and how to activate the pleasure channels in this woman. And the more pleasure she experiences, the more pleasure I experience as well. So this is when I position myself as the giver. This is my guiding force. I go like, this is a mysterious being. I'm very curious about her. I like, how does she respond when I'm massaging her toes or putting some oil around her belly or touching her neck? Does she prefer something that is more dominant and more powerful, and or is it something about the softness and whisper touch? There are different qualities that I want to explore, and all of that is like, she's offering me her body, she's offering me her being to explore. That's an incredible gift. I go like, okay, let's try to honor her to the maximum and be like, where is the flow? How can we catch this wave of pleasure and keep on diving into it? And so if I'm stuck into my head and being like trying to follow a certain routine, it's not going to work. She's going to feel it. She says, I can feel that you're not present with me. I can feel that you're not in your head. I can feel that you are in your head. I can feel that you're not attuned to what I need. So I'm going to be starting by going slow, but then moving in a way where the aim is really that is like, how can we enter into a meditative trance together using touch as a language? And so it's no longer, okay, I need my penetrative friction sex gratification. No, it's what Tara was saying in the beginning. Put that aside. It's not relevant right now. What is relevant right now is, how can I establish an energetic connection with that woman using touch, right? Touch is a full language, but then it's going to be whispers, it's going to be sound, it's going to be breathing together. And sometimes, the breath, for instance, sometimes if I engage into deeper, like rooted, grounding, breathing, then I can see Tara just like, just shifting her energy. Something happens in her where she feels energetically penetrated by that energy. And that's an activation. But it doesn't work all the time. Sometimes it's not going to be the right moment. Sometimes it's something that is softer. Sometimes you will need a touch that is more direct and grounding. Sometimes it's the whisper, the sensual. So it's very important to look at it from that angle. And again, ask yourself is like, how can I expand my partner's pleasure channels? What can I do for this woman? Because what we are doing here is all about glimmering each other. The glimmers is like, how can we worship, pleasure the shit out of each other, right? What, yeah, what are the pathways to that? And one of them is really the touch, but there is voicing. There is much more about that.
Absolutely. And, I feel like a lot of what you're speaking into really addresses the fact that female bodies open very differently from male bodies. We kind of expect that the other person just knows how our body opens. But, women are from Venus and men are from Mars. It's absolutely true. And especially when it comes to arousal. And so the beauty of the foreplay zone is that women's bodies have been scientifically proven that they need time to open because we're ruled by the heart. And when our heart opens and we feel safe and connected, then our yoni opens, then our sexuality opens. Whereas for men, it's the opposite. Their positive pole is their cock, is their lingam, their sexuality. And it's through engaging through sexuality that then their heart expands even more. So this is the kind of like cosmic joke difference between men and women, that in the foreplay zone, we get to resolve and we get to actually utilize to expand both of our pleasure potential. And so when we're really slowing down and a woman's body is being touched without agenda, there's not a single woman I've ever worked on with sexuality who hasn't said that that's the biggest closing down, is this like, the expectation that penetration's going to come. And so when that expectation of penetration's off the table and the body just has time to flow and dance and connect in this romantic foreplay zone, then the opening of that erotic fire and passion and the physically opening of the yoni is just so much more great. And
Mm-hmm.
then when you're getting into more fiery energy, then a woman can access all the different energies, the slow, the vulnerable, the fast, the primal, all spectrums of the rainbow. And so it's the foundation. Your foreplay zone is the foundation. And if a woman's heart feels fully nurtured and loved, and her body feels cared for, and that there's been presence and attentiveness to, then the wild erotic Shakti that you then get to meet is so worth it. Is so worth
Mm-hmm.
it.
Oh my
And
God.
for men as well, when it comes to like, and perhaps you can speak more into this, but when it comes to ejaculation control, the foreplay zone as women, what we're really doing is we're arousing their bodies, and then we're moving the energy through their bodies, right? Because the turn on can be quite fast for men in the animal body. And then what we're supporting them to do is to always move that energy through their whole body, through their head, through their arms, so that they can circulate that energy. And for
Mm-hmm.
us, it's kind of the opposite. We're working outside in. Our bodies are being sensitized, not at the genitals, not at the nipples, initially through the whole body, activating the pleasure senses, creating safety, creating turn on, and then the animal body activates.
Mm-hmm.
So we're
Yeah.
working with you together. And I also just want to say the foreplay zone is not just in the bedroom. The foreplay zone is out of the bedroom. And it's really sad to see couples who just become best mates, good friends in everyday life, and then they're like, oh, okay, let's do that sex thing, let's do that romance thing. And what I adore about us, and I wish that people could bring more into their lives, is we're always flirting, we're always glimmerizing, we're always being sensual. We went to kirtan last night, and we're the ones up the back just dancing together, playing, moving energy together, feeling sexual chemistry together. And the same when we go eat, we're always cuddling, caressing. And so it's the build-up of that as an everyday connective life experience outside the bedroom, that then when you do go into more like physically intimate practices in the traditional foreplay zone, there's already so much energy moving. There's already so much openness there that you get to go even deeper.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, that's such a good one, right? It's like you can imagine the idea of having sensual credits that you build up, right? You build up a reserve of sensuality or sexual fire, and this is something that you build up all the time. Like, for instance, what we eat, how we nourish ourselves is an essential part of our essential connection as well, right? The fact that I make food for you, when you taste the food and you go, ah, God, oh, that's so sensual, and that's so, and sometimes it's just a taste of fresh spirulina. Sometimes it's going to be a fruit. It's going to be something like that. But sometimes it's the meals, right? So what we choose to put into our bodies is going to be a language as well. It's going to be the touch, precisely. Yesterday, then we go to eat, and then you are laying on my lap, right? I'm massaging your feet, or massaging each other's arms. So there is, while we are talking, while we are having conversations, the touch is always present there in the background. It's always like, we never sit next to each other, like, on the other side of the table. We never go to to a restaurant where we are on a small table and you're on the other side, and there is no access to being connected, right? The sensuality is always part of the game. I take you on my scooter, you are massaging my body while being behind. Yeah. So to answer the other question that you were talking about, is like, here is a secret, from a man's body, right? I love receiving touch. It's like, if you have a man and you have a feeling that he's not really into you, discover how to touch his body, because this is your a really powerful seduction tool. Like right now, I know that on this live and probably in the recording, there is going to be quite a few women watching that. So if you have a feeling that you're losing access to your man and that the man is losing attraction, discover how to access his body and how to activate pleasure inside of him. Because when I start receiving, conscious touch from Tara, I completely surrender. I mean, all the resistances that might be in my mind, in my brain, anything, stories and everything, my whole nervous system relaxes. And I enter into this state of profound meditative pleasure and accessing. And so when she's able to look at my body and say the same thing, this man is like a musical instrument. I'm going to discover how to activate pleasure inside of him. And I can really relax into that space. The foreplay, we tend to talk a lot about women needing a certain amount of time before they warm up. And very often when we talk about being on a first date, it takes also like, I don't know, 7 hours, 10 hours for a woman to start feeling really warm for intimacy, right? This is how much time it takes to create safety as well. So this includes conversations and going on rides or doing something together that is not related with sensuality. But the same the other way around, it's like, for instance, when Tara comes to visit me over here. First, we have some food, we dive, and sometimes I feel the turn on. I go like, oh my God, I could penetrate you right now. But I know that if I did, it would be only a tiny little fraction of the experience because our energy bodies, our romantic bodies are not fully connected. There is lots of things going on in our field that hasn't been cleared, right? From maybe stress from work and other things that are in the field. So first, we want to take the time to settle down and to really allow for the safety, for the relaxation, for the serotonin, for the oxytocin to be stabilized instead of being in stress response and cortisol, adrenaline, and really running around like really stressed. We want to be able to just calm the system down so that we start engaging from a place where our limbic systems, our energetic resonance are really activated together. And so if you're a woman and you want to connect with your man, it's really, really powerful if you discover how to offer touch to that man. Also, in the whispers, in the way you position yourself. And remember that at the core of sexual attraction, there is sex. There is sex. It means, what does it mean? It means being sexy, being attractive, being in a place where if you feel like you are sexy, most of the times people are going to experience you as sexy. But if you feel like, oh, I don't know where my fire is, I don't know where my sexuality is. So if you feel like your system is not ready and you're waiting for your partner to activate you, I would recommend something. Engage into self-pleasure, engage into places where you can activate your sexual fire and understand how your sensuality works. Like, practice having pleasure by yourself. And pleasure doesn't mean just sensual or sex. It's like play with food, play with the elements, play with fire, play with breathing. For instance, stretch your body in a way that, yeah, that's so. If your pleasure channels are already activated in you and then you bring that to your partner is going to lean in and follow you with that wave. But if you are completely disconnected from your own body and you go like, it's your job to come and activate me, I go like,
Yep.
some men might be able to play that role and play that, but it's going to make it hard for them because there are going to be lots of hurdles to overcome. Lots of shame, lots of guilt, lots of trauma, lots of blockages, lots of stress. So if you want to activate that, prepare yourself. We do lots of preparation work, Tara and myself, when we are not seeing each other. Like I'm over here, I am taking extreme good care of my body. The food, showering, taking cold showers, activating, breathing, singing mantras, and then we start messaging each other, super sexy stuff. So we are warming up. We are creating anticipation, and then that way when we meet, is that we are really already warmed up. So it's almost like the pre-foreplay, or it's part of the foreplay already. But there is all these dimensions, We don't want to overwhelm you over here, but just know that you enter into the foreplay zone. It's like entering into a whole universe of possibilities, and approach it with curiosity and playfulness.
Yeah, and carve out some time for it as well. Like we have busy lives for sure, but it's where you get to rejuvenate and connect with your partner at the deepest level. So it's like when you're really prioritizing that sensual sexual time together, then that drastically increases your relationship credits, which means that your day-to-day life connection and happenings just has so much more fluidity and love at their foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And, I say to people, minimum twice a week, carve out time, minimum 1 hour within that block to sensualize. Now, that could be you just massaging each other. That could just be cuddling and kissing. Energetic sex is so hot, which just means doing all the things that you would do, but without penetration. So you can do that naked, you can do clothed on. It's a great way to really activate erotic sensual energy in your body. And if you're doing that twice a week, whether you end up having penetrative sex or not, it doesn't matter, but you're building that container to explore and elevate your sensual connection together.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would also add to that is if you're not in the mood, do it anyway, right? There's
Yes.
always the excuses of, oh, I got to finish my work, or I'm too exhausted. All the mind, all the mind. When you prioritize this devotional, sensual, loving space with your partner, you're going to build the energetic field of your relationship container.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe you want to do what Shiva just suggested, which is to clear your being so that when you show up, like you would if you were going on a date, you'd wear some nice clothes, you'd look after yourself. You're not going to come in your pajamas with your hair in a knot. And it's the same when we come to meet our beloved, whether we've been with them for 1 month, 1 year, 10 years. It's like show up with that same reverence and devotion. So whatever you need to do, shaking is probably the easiest go-to, letting out sound, shaking the body just to let out any tension of the day so that you can show up with presence, so that you can show up with attunement, so that you can be open and curious to explore. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to be fully resolved. So yesterday, I haven't seen Shiva for 2 weeks. I've been back in Australia with my family, and yesterday we saw each other for the first time. I've been dealing with mold poisoning, moving into a new place. There's mold there. The house is just like chaotic. It was a lot. And I've been emotionally releasing every day, doing my practices. And then when Shiva comes over, he just lies on the bed. Come here, just holds me, and I'm smelling him and feeling his skin against mine, and then I just cry. And so the foreplay zone doesn't have to look like, oh my God, I feel so orgasmic. It can be tears, as you were saying earlier on, and it can be vulnerability. And from there I could then express a little of what was going on in my psyche. And then I kind of kept looping in my mind. And when he caught that, because he was present with me and he could see it wasn't serving me, he brought me back into my body and started like caressing me and kissing me and giving me reassuring words. And then we just went into sensuality together. And we had 40 minutes before we had to leave. And we were just in the sexiest foreplay zone, clothes on, rolling around of the bed. I'm in pleasure. I'm releasing pain at the same time from what my body was feeling. And in 2 days of emotional processing, being in the passionate, sensual, foreplay erotic zone is what finally broke me through to be like, oh my God, I'm not going to die. Everything's going to be okay, because this man just went, my girl just needs some pleasure right now.
Yeah, exactly. You just need some pleasure. Yeah, that's so beautiful.
Amazing
Yeah.
gift.
And, for a man, witnessing a woman in her vulnerability, the same the other way around is a gift. It's like the emotions that are moving, the tears, the crying, the vulnerability, all that is like, thank you for giving me the chance to adore that part of you as well, right? For not hiding it from me. So that's the way we can look at it. And something that I noticed as well yesterday is what I mentioned to you is no desire to fix it, no desire to change it to another state. Just allowing the flow. Once the release is complete, then move to whatever emotions and whatever flow might be happening. Um, yeah, but it's so beautiful. It's such an incredible exploration. There is something I want to bring into this conversation as well, just quickly, if we have some time. It is the idea of sexual conversations and the the communication that we have, that is very important in creating the safety for the foreplay. So one of the things that I think is really important, a tip for you out there if you are navigating a first date, is engage into sexual or sensual conversation as soon as possible, as soon as you can. Instead of being like information-based conversation, say where you come from, what did you do, da da da, and all this information, sometimes talking about our exes or talking about things that are completely irrelevant to there. Ask questions like, what is your passion? What are the things that really turn you on? And so, how do you feel when I touch your hand like that? So that you start gathering information about the sensuality and what this person likes or loves. So this person is going to give you a lot of information just by asking some questions. You say, I can see that you're a very sensual being. What's the thing that really activates you in the morning? What is your love language? Do you prefer receiving a gift or words of appreciation? Start discovering more of that. So this is in the initial stages, especially if you're on the first date. Instead of being like, okay, we talked about all this stuff. Now is the end of the date, and now I'm taking you back home, and now I have to decide if I'm going to kiss you or not. And there has been absolutely no sexual exchange during the whole night,
Yeah.
and we go from 0 to 100 in no time. You go like, what? And so if you don't want to bring into this awkward moment, just build it up slowly. You build it up through the touch. You build it up through the questions that you ask, and then start moving in that direction. And sometimes if a kiss is appropriate and that person is already in your arms and you're already like cuddling and sensualizing and moving your hands on their body, then eventually the kiss might come naturally. But it doesn't have to be like from complete discontact to suddenly a kiss, right? So this is called kino escalation or escalation of touch, right? So move really slowly. First, you just touch the hand. Maybe you start massaging each other's feet or something like that, right? Something that builds up. So that's one, the conversations before you start connecting sensually with somebody. And another one, which is very important, is the conversation that you have after the foreplay, the conversation that you have after sex. Very often is the day after. So I encourage you to start practicing that with your partner if you're not yet doing that. It is the feedback minute. It's like the day after you ask your partner, hey, just tell me 5 things that you really enjoyed last night about our lovemaking. And those hints are going to be very important in creating the connection, because sometimes me as a man, I'm not going to get it right. I'm going to do something and I go like, that was really, really good. And then I ask my partner and she might be like, oh, actually that felt a bit uncomfortable. I don't know why. It kind of contracted me. And I go like, really? I thought you were having fun. And she's like, no, actually, my body was contracting because there was a bit of discomfort or pain. I go like, oh, I thought that was pleasure. you know. So having this feedback minute the day after is really a way to discover much more about each other. So ask, 5 things that you really enjoyed. What are the things that really touch you? Oh, I love when you touch my neck. I love the way you started massaging my heart. I love the way you came closer to my yoni without really touching it, but just breathing. There might be things like that that are really powerful hints. And then you can also ask for feedback on potential things that are shadows, things that are uncomfortable, or things that might have been a bit painful during the connection. And so that way you can start directing the lovemaking and the foreplay into directions that are going to be more attuned with the person. But the feedback that you can get from your partner, ask the questions. If you're not sure, just ask, and then it's going to clarify your field, right? We do that really well, right? Very often after we have a night or a moment, give me 5 things that you really enjoyed. It's always like a gratitude minute, and it's a feedback minute as well.
Absolutely. And we have a question that's just come through. So
Okay.
how to not overthink, set boundaries in the moment without it being awkward? I suppose the right person will be open and receptive, etc., on a date.
So the question
And
is
yeah,
how to set up boundaries.
how to not overthink and set boundaries in the moment without it being awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's interesting because this person says I'm guessing the right person will be open and receptive. And I think it's two things. One is just being authentic. We do overthink what we're going to say because we're in our mind thinking, oh, but I don't want to upset the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about being in relationship with you is even sometimes if it's clunky, if there's still some fear there of speaking up about whatever it is, or a boundary, or honestly, because you're a man and you do the inner work and you're not taking things personally and you love me, you're genuinely curious of what it is that I'm desiring, then you receive that. So it has partly to do, I believe, with whatever you're feeling, speak it authentically, ideally in the moment. Be yourself, allow your voice to be heard. And if the person that you're on a date with doesn't have the emotional capacity to receive feedback or to receive you, then you know that it's not a right match. But if you're with someone who can be like, oh, okay, I'm interested in that, and they want to understand you because they genuinely care, thumbs up.
Mm-hmm.
You got it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. I want to add to that a couple of things. The first one is that if you have very specific boundaries, for instance, you go like, I don't want penetration tonight. Talk about it in the original connections. You go like, what are your desires for tonight? So you have an original conversation where you set up the boundaries in a different context, so that you can set up the direction. Another tip that works really well is that if you feel like something is happening in the lovemaking or in the foreplay that feels uncomfortable, just say this. Can we just pause for a second? Just pause for a second, and then when the person pauses, can we just breathe for a moment? If it's going too fast, if something is happening that you don't like, and then you can ask your partner. You can say, "Is it okay if I offer you a reflection?" Right? Ask for permission first. That way, it's not going to come out of nowhere, right? It's like if I'm there engaged and I'm sensualizing it, and my partner just says something, it's going to block my flow. I'm in flow state. I'm like really very receptive. So if we pause first and then offering reflection, sometimes it's easier for the partner, for the person to receive rather than that. The other thing that I think is very important to watch out is that a couple of guidance, a couple of things. Like, for instance, Tara yesterday, she goes like, "Oh, can we go a bit slower?" Right? Just slower. So that's just an indication. It's very different than micromanaging the whole process, right? So micromanaging comes from a desire to control, to be like, "Oh, I'm not comfortable with that. I have to stay in control of what's happening." So I think that having a couple of hints here and there is very useful. Now, if it's completely out of line, say, just pause, can we stop for a second, and then have a conversation about the things that you love and the things that you don't love, so that the person understands a little bit more. And something else to understand as well about that is that practice makes you master at it. It's like, for me, we started centralizing with Tara more than 4 years ago. In between, we had a long break, right? But basically, it's like what I understand about her body today is very different than what I understood like 4 years ago. It's very different. It's much much deeper now. And it all came because of dozens and hundreds of lovemaking and sensualizing experiences. Without that experience, I would not be able to please her or know her the way I know her today. So we discover much more about other people, potential lovers and partners, by engaging. The more you play, the more you sensualize, rather than being like, "Oh, I have to micromanage. This is the way we're going to do it, and do it once, and then nothing is happening for a month." No, it's like you sensualize every day, you bring it on in your relationship, and you play with that a lot, and eventually the capacity to navigate all of that in ways that are skillful are growing. And yeah, those are the general guidelines when we are confronted sometimes with some of potential shadows.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think in a nutshell, I'd like to close by saying that foreplay is a daily lifestyle, not just a bedroom act. So when we
Mm,
expand our perception of what foreplay is into the way that we relate with our beloved, essentially flirting outside the bedroom, in our interactions, that when we do come into that foreplay zone, there's already that erotic energy there, that when we bring presence and intention to that in the foreplay zone, then we can really create an incredibly strong foundation to dive into sensuality, into sexuality, into the emotional body, both in the foreplay zone and in more deeper lovemaking experiences. And absolutely, practice makes perfect. So carve out the time, make it a priority. There's a reason that on the path of Tantra, it's like relationships and lovemaking are the path to awakening. You know, we're not just sitting and meditating all day. We're interacting, we're exploring our emotional bodies, or exploring our sexual bodies, which is one of the highlights of being human, you know, is that we feel pleasure and we feel pain. So go on an exploration with yourself, go on an exploration with your partner, prioritize being curious and playing and exploring with each other. And you guys will become your own best tantric teachers by really, you know, putting some practices into that experience and then trusting your intuition and the natural energy moving between you and your partner.
Yeah, beautiful. I have a couple of final words as well. One of them is if you want a general guiding, you know, how to navigate all that. When you are in the interaction with somebody, ask yourself these two questions: are we having fun? Is this fun? You know, if it's not fun, you know, sometimes it's going to be, you know, shadows or emotions. But basically, it's a good question to have in mind. Like, remember, is this fun? And is this pleasurable? Where is the pleasure? Are we experiencing pleasure? Because then that gives you a little bit of a guideline. So those are questions that, you know, when I go like, move your body differently, breathe differently, touch differently, so that you can really start synchronizing, because that's one of the goals, you know, in the centralizing. I have another tip, which is learn French. If you don't speak French yet,
My new fetish.
that's then Spanish can work as well. But I discovered something is that French language just unlocks something into this woman, and I cannot believe I haven't been using that more before. Over the last couple of months, it has been a revelation. Mon amour, l'amour, je t'adore, oh, toucher ton corps et ton cœur. You know. No, seriously, there. Some languages are going to be more sexy and sensual. Or in Spanish as well. Ay, mi amor, qué deliciosa estás. Te quiero besar.
And I just get to receive because I don't speak anything other than Australian.
Australian, Australian sounds like the sexiest language on this planet in your mouth. Yeah. What are we going to do next, Tara? What's
Thank
coming next?
you. Let's see. Let's do another one next month. Why not? Well, if
No,
anyone's in Bali this August, Shiva and I are running Fundamentals of Tantra. It's a 2-day deep dive into inner union with yourself. And then the second day is all sensual, energetic, beautiful practices. It's for singles, it's for couples. It's a super safe, sacred, informative, and experiential space. So we'll put a link to that in the comments.
Beautiful.
And
And
stay in touch.
the next thing that is going to happen, Tara, jump on your back, and we're going to start practicing all these foreplay techniques. I've got some food ready for you over here. And that's the rest. We are going to go off camera now because I don't think you can take it. No, maybe going to be a bit too much to share all that publicly. And oh yeah, one more thing is, like, if you have any questions, I don't know if there is a link to my stuff somewhere. I love receiving questions, so feel free to reach out, and I run these questions, and I'm happy to just do quick check-ins if you have something in your field or in your mind that you go like you need some extra advice or ideas on. And if you need more deeper on that, then we can always have a session. But just send me your questions, and I'll be happy to check them out. Okay.
Great. Check the link in the social media feed for all of that. And stay in touch. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Practice.
Tara, Tara, Tara. I love you. You're delicious.
I love you, baby. We love you all. Thank you so much for joining us. Jaya.